Well, hello folks, this is Yamil for Gunstock Reviews. We're here at Enloe Custom Guns with Marty in Phoenix, Arizona. So today, Marty, I have a Ruger Gunsight Scout Rifle. This is a used rifle that I traded with a friend. It originally had the laminated Ruger Gunsight Mark stock that actually split back here. We were discussing earlier that that often happens when the back of the cut bit there.
If the stock makes contact, so there should be a noticeable gap on the back of a wood stock if you have a square shoulder back here. It's not something you normally run into on guns like Remington 700s because it kind of goes away into nothing, right? But in Rugers and certain other guns out there that have kind of a square back, you need a clearance in there. So like old Winchester 94s can have a tendency to have like a split back here, or just some of those older guns, and it's just the way that when the gun recoils, it hits back there, and that's what splits the stock. But it's not a surprise that it happened, but yeah, you need a clearance kind of put in there.
Well, make a long story short, I called Ruger, gave them the serial number. They sent me a brand new laminated stock. I put it away, never used it, and got myself a, plastic synthetic stock, which is a Ruger brand, has a Ruger logo in it. And Ruger sells it like this at a lower cost. But let's talk about used rifles. I got this, like I said, a trade from a friend, and he sent me the original trigger, but it had this trigger, I don't know the manufacturer, installed in it. And even before I tried firing it, I dry fired at home and scared the living snot out of me. I tested with my trigger gauge and it was under a pound. I know you told me that you have rifles with a trigger pull under a pound, but
I don't have any rifles trigger pull under a pound.
But you've seen them before.
I've seen them, and there's usually something that I'll say this: the lightest triggers I've ever put in guns were in guns that basically needed a truck to put somewhere. They were so heavy.
Oh, okay,
right?
okay, yeah.
And look, you can set up light triggers on guns, and there's always going to be this thing in the back of my mind as a smith setting it up, going how low. How reasonably safe is it, right? Now, there are companies out there that make fully usable, adjustable triggers that are actually quite good. I have kind of a general rule here that I don't set up anything below 2 pounds in a rifle. In pistols, it's a different story for me. Now, if somebody wants something lighter, I could say one of two things: learn to shoot better, or take it to somebody else. But yeah, you're saying that this thing was under a pound, so it was unsafe. And here's the thing: there's stages to a trigger that you could ask yourself, right? Was it really light? Did it have a lot of creep, right? You know what I mean by creep? Okay. So for those who don't know, creep is the thing where when you pull the trigger, you actually feel it kind of riding the two surfaces, where sometimes you'll feel no creep and just a break, and then other times you'll feel a lot of creep before a break, right? And typically guns that are set up that light actually need more creep, mainly so they're safe. Because it is a possibility that you could close a bolt too hard and that thing discharges if they're set up incorrectly. And looking at that component there, I told you right off the bat, just visually it's unsafe. And you were looking at one thing, I was looking at another. And you were looking at one thing saying, see, look like somebody worked on it. It's like, yeah, it's really bad from all angles, right? And yeah, if you ended up with a gun like that, yes, you would want to replace components on it. But let's say you got a gun that was extremely old. Let's say it wasn't parts that we could replace. Then what do you do? So sometimes, yeah, you could buy something on the used market and there's no replacement parts for it. That's a possibility. Unlikely in a lot of things, but as we're finding with a lot of surplus guns that are out there, parts are drying up, or in this case, Ruger's making these, but Ruger has models of the M77 they don't produce anymore.
Correct.
Like the rear tang safety models. In which case, there are aftermarket triggers out there for some of those things, but there's other components that could be an issue as well. So you could run into issues at some point where parts aren't available. And I know that's not the worst possibility right now, but eventually one day maybe it could be.
Yeah, and originally, I pulled this rifle out the other day. I've had it in my safe for a couple of years. Never gave it any thought. I said, hey, I'm going to take it out and shoot it. And when I remembered, oh, crap, this is the one that has that very light trigger pull. That's when I tested it. And I called you and I said, Marty, we got to do something about this. And I put the original factory trigger back on it and trigger spring. It was in a bag inside of the box. And this spring is very light too. So I said, might as well take it out and let Marty inspect it. And well, heck, I was right, because it had been worked on, and you said that it wasn't correctly worked on.
Well, once again, when the work happens, so let's say a 1911 is a good example. The 1911 sear, if somebody shortens it by I think 5 thousandths, it's so out of spec it's unworkable, right? It doesn't take a whole lot to change the geometry to where it's unusable. If somebody shortened that thing too much, right? In which case, it depends on the gun, depends on the action. But let's say I was going to try to figure that thing out and make it work. I'd have to grind the surface. I'd have to surface grind the surface straight, because right now it's in what we would call a negative angle, right? And there should be two flat bearing surfaces. One is sitting not only like this, but also like this. It's not making a whole lot of contact to begin with, and it's rather rough.
Yeah, I can see. We're looking at the same component from two different sides. You're looking at the angles. I'm looking at the surface, and all the edges are rounded off. And so it was unsafe.
I'm just saying, even in order to straighten that thing out again, right? And there are certain things that you could probably do to it. Like we could grind the surface off to give it correct angles again. But if it's too short, look, it's a cast part. You're not going to weld. You can't weld on these parts liability wise. I mean, yes, you could, but you shouldn't, right? But it's a component that you would just toss, and it's unfortunate.
Yeah, and that goes to my first idea on this project was to, when you buy a used gun, bring it to a gunsmith like Marty, have him inspect it. So, because I wasn't aware that this part was off spec and had been worked on. My buddy who traded this rifle with me, he probably didn't know it either. He probably got it in trade from someone else. We traded it again, and I ended up with a rifle that had a part that was kind of iffy, but he was nice enough to give me the original factory part, which I slapped back on. Boom, and I'm back in business. I do have a brand new Timney trigger at home. I didn't bring it with me today because I just wanted to talk about this first before we did any more changes to it.
Right. Well, like I say, you're essentially, let's say the amount of work that you would go, that would be involved in something like that. You would need the component swapped out. You would need the trigger adjusted, at least to make sure that it's safe, right? And then you would need to know that it's shot afterwards. So it would have to be installed, shot, make sure the whole thing's safe.
Yeah. And it would be cost prohibitive at that point. It would be cheaper for you to go to a brand new trigger.
And so here's another thing that just hit me, right? Which is, I'm seeing the part. I haven't actually seen the gun. I didn't see the part in the gun, but did the safety work? Now, was it possible, like we know Remington's Walker trigger, where you could kick the safety on, pull the trigger a little bit, kick the safety off, and sometimes they fired. Well, when when surfaces are changed like that, you could run into that situation where, yeah, you kick the safety, the idea is that when the safety's on, everything's pressed back into place. But if you kick the safety off, boom, does it go off again?
I never tried that.
Yeah,
but yeah, that's another.
And that's one of the big things about that, was just like, okay, safety on, safety off, right? You run safety on. If you kick the safety off, is it possible for? That's one of the things that we check, right? That's why when you see me hold an AR, an AR-15. I kick the safety on and pull the trigger, right? Because I want to know that I pull the trigger and then kick it off, that it doesn't fire. These are things that a gunsmith would regularly check.
Yeah. Well, you're looking for safety and function at the same time. I was just looking at function, never considered the safety part of it, and that's very important. So back into it. So tip of the day, if you get a used firearm, take it to a gunsmith, specifically because you don't know the provenance of that firearm or who had it 3 people before you got it.
Well, especially if you're not getting it from the original owner.
Oh yeah, especially because, my buddy probably got it from somebody else, who probably got it from somebody else, and it passed hands 3 or 4 times.
Problem guns have a tendency to do that. Right? Yeah,
and this one, feels good, but now with the factory trigger, honestly, I don't mind the 2.5, 3 pound trigger pull of the factory trigger. Could it be less? Yeah. When we'll test it, put the Timony on, and test it again.
Well, once again, what's your intended purpose of it, right?
Well, for me, it's going to be just for fun. I'll probably take it to gun site and run the scrambler, and that's it. I'm not going to go hunting with it. Because, as well as Dave knows, I do my hunting a Safeway. And they have a really good department there that you go in and hunt. They get really mad when you shoot your gun in the meat department. They get really upset. So that's the extent of my hunting. But I tell you what, I'll take it out. We'll take it out to the range, sight it in. In a couple of days, I'm going to the range. I'll sight it in with, I bore sighted this scope, which is a Opal 1.5 to 4 scout scope. So we'll see how it shoots, with different kinds of ammo. But I am gonna, other than that, that's gonna be the extent of my shooting. One thing that Marty was giving me grief, and he did, is my wish to replace the flash hider with an annoying muzzle brake. I know Freddie Blish has choice words, by the way, Marine Corps choice words that we're not going to use in this channel, about people who put muzzle brakes on their rifles. And let's put it this way. He gave me the Elon Musk treatment. Okay, so Marty, we're not going to do this on camera. Marty's done this a million times on camera. Marty, will you please is the crush washer there, is the brake. You please put this in, and we'll be back in a couple of minutes with an annoyingly loud rifle. So is it annoying now?
It's up to you.
Well, it's not up to me, because this is not going to annoy me. It's going to annoy the guy standing next to me. Yeah, those guys are going to be pissed. So I'm going to...
Hey, but your shoulder will be just fine, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So who cares about them, right? At least I don't do this in an indoor range.
Yeah, that probably wouldn't be advisable. But...
Yeah.
That's not true.
Well, I've done it in an indoor range with Dave right on the side. And yeah, it's really annoying. The Surefire brake is incredibly annoying, but it's very effective. Okay. So it does make a difference. So I usually keep on my old parts. And let's take it out to the range, Marty. Appreciate it. Thanks a lot, man. Well, thanks for watching. And please like this video, share this video, and subscribe to the channel. Please remain healthy with Hygienol products and stay safe, and definitely have fun at the range.
Thank you for watching Gunstock Reviews. Please visit our website at www.gunstockreviews.com for more exclusive content. Please visit our Patreon page at www.patreon.com/GunstockReviews. Your contributions would be greatly appreciated and help us grow our selections and frequency of videos.